Hello, friends, and welcome to 2% the podcast. Today, we are talking all about one of the most under-optimized areas of the e-commerce experience, and that is the transactional channel. Transactional channel is capable of driving amazing results like 60 to 80% email open rates, 50 to 75% click-through rates on transactional SMS, as well as helping you to recapture as much as 20% of your website traffic and take it back from a shipping carrier and bring it to your own website to do amazing things like provide great customer experience, to drive integration, adoption, and even drive additional sales. Chatting with me today about this is Yaw Aning, the CEO of Malomo. So in this conversation with Yaw, we talk a lot about the transactional channel, how to optimize it, how to think about all the different areas of it, from the emails to the SMSs to the order tracking page. And we really holistically dive into what does great look like across just getting started versus someone who's really optimizing a lot of personalized experiences. So much low-hanging fruit for you to take advantage of in this episode, especially as we head into Q4. You should definitely be thinking about optimizing this channel. So I couldn't think of a more timely discussion for us to be chatting about. So all that and more will be covered in this conversation. And with that, I present to you Yaw Aning of Malomo. Yaw, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm doing great, Blake. Thanks for having me. Very excited to be here.
Of course, it's a pleasure to have you on the show. You and I have been connected for a long time now, going back to, you were actually one of my first podcast guests on a very short-lived show that I had called Techspertise, which was like a rogue podcast that I had within Attentive. It got very quickly shut down when we tried to go external. The head of comms had an absolute field day over that, so she shut it down. We're here. We're doing it live now, doing it the right way. But it's great to be here, man, and I'm really excited to chat with you today.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, I had a lot of fun. You got a face for video, a voice for audio. So this is your sweet spot, man. I'm glad you at least got a chance to resurrect it. I didn't realize Attentive shut that down.
Yeah, that's
their loss, I guess.
Totally. A story for another day. RIP Techspertise. It was a great name, honestly. I feel like they should use it at some point.
Yes.
But hey, man, today's episode is going to be all about a channel that I think in many ways is feeling like the early days of the rise of SMS marketing and e-commerce. And with Q4 madness coming soon, I think anyone listening should be thinking about investing here. And that's the transactional channel, or what's more commonly referred to as like shipping updates or the shipping experience. So we're going to be talking all about optimizing the transactional channel today with Yaw. I might be a little bit passionate about this channel. I've spent a lot of time at past roles, discussing the transactional channel, but I couldn't think of a better person to unpack this with. So just to kind of get us going here, man, like you talk to countless brands, work with countless brands to help them turn the transactional channel into like a retention and CX kind of superpower for the brand. So if you could just kind of start, maybe catch us up, like what are you seeing out in the consumer market right now? And like, what are brands coming to Malomo with, looking to solve for?
Yeah. In the consumer market right now, it's like, everybody who's in this space probably is seeing the market just kind of whipsaw back and forth. Like last year, we saw pretty stark decline in shopping. Like it slowed way down. Obviously, like the industry's dealing, I feel like with blow after blow of like hits, things like privacy changes. Obviously, COVID was a massive disruption, both positively and negatively, depending on, the merchant to their business, inflation, and it's like hitting the consumer in really interesting ways. So last year we saw, pretty moderate order volume growth. And then like probably the most insane like growth numbers I've seen during Black Friday, Cyber Monday. Like we saw like 4x growth year over year in order volume in those months, right? From one Black Friday, Cyber Monday to the next. I think part of that was driven by like the inflation piece was a really important part of that conversation, right? I think folks were just like the economy softening. They were actually waiting to spend when they knew they could get deals, and so like I think that was a big part of it. Is just people were just like pushing their spending back. And coming off of that, this year we've seen order volumes rebound. So I think that's positive. Like I think there's still some trepidation in the market right now where folks are like, are we in a recovery? Like, are we in a recession? Are we out of those things? And I think the numbers, at least on our side, speak to like spending is starting to come back a little bit. So I think that's positive. From the merchant angle, I think we're seeing merchants coming to us with a lot more. Like when we launched back in 2019, I think transactional messaging, order tracking was like an afterthought. People didn't really think about that at all. Now you have merchants who are highly educated, who are looking for like they know what tools they want, and they know sort of like what they want to do, but they're looking for partners to help them strategize how that actually manifests itself in the experience that they're able to deliver. So that's been like I think a very positive change in the industry where people just recognize, yeah, we got to do something here. Maybe we don't know what we need to do, but we know we need to do something.
Hmm.
Um, I think they also recognize the importance that, if you like, there's a shift happening from people spending a lot of their dollars and time on acquisition now to spending it on retention. And they view order tracking as a key piece of that. And so when you see order volumes typically declining from some macro event, merchants often tend to switch their viewpoints to driving more of their business forward through retention and getting repeat purchases. And so I think Malomo's, I mean, as a business, we're sort of benefiting from that shift and helping merchants try to figure out how to do that better.
Totally, yeah. And we're going to talk a lot about that experience and what merchants are looking to do, I think, later in the conversation here. But just to touch on the economic factors too, I mean, talking to so many brands as well, I'm hearing, similar themes. And it's interesting to see, like, you look at like what happened with Prime Day, like this year. And I
Yeah.
think like we look at Q4 and historically, again, looking back last year, like where consumers are looking to spend, everyone's waiting for deals. I think we're going to see a lot of just growth in consumer spending in Q4 here. So like perfect time to be investing, I think, in making sure your order tracking, your transactional updates, all that stuff is in a good spot as you see this new influx of either customers or even your existing customers coming back and making sure you get that great experience from end to end. Could you just talk about
100%.
like what's the opportunity you think with like the transactional channel and like I guess like looking at historically like where things were, before, solutions like Malomo existed, like catch us up a little bit on like what the experience was like and kind of like what it can be now.
hmm Yeah, I think merchants, like I think it was plain and simple an afterthought for most merchants. Like everybody's like, I got the transaction. Yes, dope. Now I'm on to my next transaction, right? It's like uh, they offloaded a lot of the experience to carriers or to their cart platforms to sort of like just handle that. I think it was like an out of sight, out of mind type of thing. I don't think they realized like when we were working early on with merchants and we shared things like the open rates on their emails, the click-through rates on those emails, the click-through rates or the engagement on the tracking page. That was mind-blowing to them. They did not understand the level of engagement that was happening during that part of the customer experience. And then it was almost like an aha moment clicked for them. Where it's like, oh yeah, so now that they see the data, they now have a reason to go and optimize it. And so that was like pretty key for us in helping merchants early on. Is just like the only way you can actually understand what's happening, like from a consumer perspective, is to take control of the experience and start to get the data. And once you have the
Mhm.
data, then you can do something with that,
Sure.
and optimize it. I think like some of the things that we saw was like a fifth of all overall website traffic hits one single page on the e-commerce brand's website, and that's the order status page. Like that alone should like flicker light bulbs in
Yeah.
operators' minds. You think about how much a merchant pays for brand impressions on Facebook, right? Like they spend a lot of money to get their brand in front of a consumer. Um, to just like think that they're throwing away all of that traffic that they actually like earned and owned, um, seems like a huge miss. Like if a merchant works with Malomo, like I love that. I care about that a lot. But it's like it's a win for me in the industry if merchants just start taking back control over this entire experience because they're giving up a lot by not doing that.
Totally. I mean, I remember I started investing in like the transactional channel probably like 2019, 2020 when I was still like doing email marketing for brands and just starting to see I was like looking at, click through rates, we were looking at open rates and I'm like, man, like so what you said, I mean, the data tells the story. It's like we're seeing all this engagement, like consumers want these messages and we're
Yes.
just sending that to DHL, to FedEx, to USPS and like 20% of all traffic on your website going to a order tracking page, like that is a gold mine of opportunity for the great customer experience first and foremost, but then second it's like all the things you can do on that tracking page, which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit here too, but it's just
Yeah.
like the optimization game. Like D2C is this industry of 1% and 2% improvements. That's why I named the
Hmm.
podcast this 2% the podcast. It's like these are the things that really like you shouldn't be giving that traffic away. Like you've spent all this money to acquire a customer. Like why would you want to then give them a dead end experience and not bring them back to your site to keep it branded, to keep it engaging, all the
Hmm.
things.
Yes. Yeah. Man, it's so true. Like it's so true. I in the early days I'd talk to merchants and some would be like, well, I want UPS. I want to send my customers to UPS because I want to put in their mind that like if something goes wrong, it's UPS's fault.
Mm,
The problem is when that happens, what's the consumer ultimately going to do? They're still going to go back to your brand to fix it. And
sure.
so, even if not 100% of their thought process is like you are the person responsible, part of the thought process is you are at least responsible for the solution. So, you're going to pay for it in brand currency one way or the other. Um, and so, like, I think to like to your point, to offload it to the carriers, like you're losing a lot. Like it's not just like the customer experience. It's not just the opportunity to drive repeat purchases. It's like your brand reputation that you're putting at
Right.
stake. Um, and consumers, like the stats are staggering. It's like 8 or 9 out of 10 consumers. Um, like judge the overall experience that they have shopping with a brand on the delivery experience that they have. It's like, well, if you don't control that, man, you're putting a lot of your brand reputation at risk.
You're really just kind of throwing all that kind of in the wind and seeing what happens if you don't control as much as you can. And like, I think also, what's really interesting too is like, there's been a lot of emphasis on retention over the last 2, 3 years
Mm-hmm.
here in the Shopify space, particularly. But like, we always focus on like the post purchase experience, like after delivery, or like, hey, like, what should my email flows look like? Like, when do I ask for another purchase? When do I upsell them, all the things, but like fundamentally like we're missing the first step, which is like the shipping experience and having all those emails and those SMSs and everything built out. You guys make that super easy to do, and I'd love to kind of just now push it forward a little bit and chat about just like what is at like the highest level. Maybe you can just give us a quick overview of like what great looks like, and
Mm,
then we'll piece by piece look at each of those kind of components.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's really good. So I think the three areas in which we tend to focus on with our merchants is um, CX, revenue, and brand. So those are like the three categories that we sort of group these interactions in. Um, uh, and then you kind of unpack that. The
Mm,
first is, the what's the customer pain point or need? It's I need complete transparency around where my order is when I should expect it, and like I am okay as a consumer if something changes or goes wrong, as long as you set a new expectation with me around what that delivery date should look like. And so the CX piece of that is just like that transparent, proactive communication with that consumer um, as that package moves. I think one of the unique things about ecom and where Malomo sits in that, and there are other kind of solutions that sort of play into the delivery landscape as well.
mm,
Is that tracking a physical item moving in the real world, like what can go wrong will go wrong, and so you have to anticipate, right, that like issues are going to happen. Um, and your consumers no longer accept the fact that you're sitting back and letting those things happen without some sort of like intervention by you to make it right on their behalf. So like that CX piece is really key. Transparent communication around, you know, when to expect the order, and if things go wrong, proactively communicating those updates to them.
Hmm.
Once you solve that, it's almost what's that pyramid of needs, hierarchy of needs.
Oh,
I
Maslow's
can't.
hierarchy of needs.
Maslow, thank you,
Yeah, yeah.
Maslow. That's like the tip. Like we solved that pain point. Once we've done that, then we have an opportunity to sort of like use this space to build brand perception with your customers. So like that's a second piece is brand. Do the communications look and feel pleasing to the customer? Do they match your brand style? Are you using the right tone in your communications that again match your brand style?
Mhm.
Are you leveraging this as an opportunity to like educate the customer about like what it is you stand for, your mission, um, what how you made your products, why they're unique, how do you use the products, how do you integrate them into your daily life? That is what I think of when I think of like brand and positioning during the order tracking experience, a really unique opportunity. And then that third layer is like if you do those two things well, you've bought yourself an opportunity to ask for a second sale, right? So that's when we get into that revenue piece, where you know if you meet the first two things, the third thing is pretty easy. um, and there's a lot of things you can do in that third dimension to drive repeat purchases. But those are the sort of the three buckets I think we try to attack with our merchants and bucket them into.
Totally, yeah. CX brand and then the revenue at the end of that or getting to that repeat purchase. It all makes sense. It's all logical, and I think it's the right order of operation to think about with, transactional as a channel. And like, I know platforms like Malomo are like a kind of a CX team's like superpower to have that
Yeah.
insight into. Yeah, like you said, I mean, shipping is such a delicate. You do all the things right as a brand, but then UPS might not scan the label or something happens there and suddenly like customers looking where their order is, and to have all the things. I mean, like I did a whole episode on shipping snafus with Molly Meats a while ago. We were talking about
Yeah.
that, but like yeah, these are the things that just like CX first and foremost get it right, and also to like set the expectation that you're gonna be proactive, you're gonna keep them in the loop. I think a lot of times like brands that I've spoken with who were on the fence about it, they were like, hey, do we really want to tell a customer where their stuff is at like throughout the
Yeah.
journey? Like, is that like the right way, or should we just kind of say, hey, 3 to 5 days, like you might get an update, kind of something like that. So I think you're right on that. And then also, yeah, the taking it a step further, like the brand, building that out through branding these communications. And then also that last piece of it too, kind of coming together with the order tracking page and some of those kind of next steps. But on the communication side, like what are what specifically, like are these emails, are these SMSs? Like I'm gonna put on my beginner's hat with a transactional channel and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of ask some questions around that. Like what kind of communications are brands sending then, and on what channels are they doing this with?
Yeah, I mean, so like putting Malomo aside in this, I think taking a multi-channel approach is the right approach. Like meet consumers where they want to be met.
Mhm.
Some will want to hear about their order status via SMS. And sometimes they'll like the same consumer might say, this order I'm particularly sensitive about, but this other order I don't really care that much about, right? So like they might even it might not even be a consumer preference. It might even be like a type of order preference.
Mhm.
SMS is a major channel. Email is an obvious major channel, and then you have like this periphery of like other channels to communicate on. So you can think of like people going back to your website directly and getting an update on their order status. You might even be able to like proactively identify who that customer is when they visit your site and show some type of banner with their order status. Um, you think of like voice communication. So somebody might be at home and their Alexa might update them on the order. Or they might spend a lot of time on social and want updates through like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. So I think there's a lot of like modes in which you can communicate order status, and trying to take advantage of each of those channels and what those channels afford you. I think is like the best approach for merchants today. But again, like I said, like consumers have their own preferences and needs, and like trying to figure out ways to meet them where they are is going to create even naturally some level of consumer delight, right? When you
Totally.
update them that way.
Yeah, that's great call out, meeting them where they want to be met as well. To double tap on the email side of things, like what kind of stats are you seeing from like a performance standpoint on transactional emails? I know a lot of
Yeah.
retention marketers love these emails.
Yeah, they are. They're absurd. I like I knew when we were building Malomo, like we had a hunch like this part of the journey was important, but we didn't really know until we saw some of the stats. It's like 60 to 80% open rates on these emails and 10 to 20% click-through rates. And in some instances, it's a 5 to 10x better performance than you'd see on your normal marketing emails. And so these are highly engaged. The beauty of these emails, I mean, the whole conversation that we're having is around transactional, right? Which means these are things that hit the inbox, and it's communication that customers really, really want. Like they're
Hmm.
thirsting for it. And so they seek it out and search it and they engage with it. So the performance is fantastic. Like there's fewer moments that a marketer has to like message a customer and the customer be very, very receptive to getting that message. And the performance backs that up.
Totally. Yeah, I think to
Yeah.
your point, yeah, like these are the messages that consumers want to be seeing in their email inbox after they give you their hard-earned money on whatever they've just purchased. But like the stats speak for themselves. Like we obsess over other automations, and maybe they're seeing 20 to 30 to 40% open rates, but like to see an email like this get that amount of opens and not optimize it, like that's such a missed opportunity. Are folks setting these up in like an ESP like Klaviyo? Or are they putting them in Shopify still? Like what do most customers kind of do with their emails?
Yeah, most of our customers are setting like their emails up in their ESP. So a good portion of our customers use Klaviyo as their email provider. And so yeah, they're setting them up there. Depending on your plan type on Shopify, like there's some transactional notifications that you can't turn off, like they have to come from Shopify.
Hmm.
So we do have like a portion of our customers continue to use Shopify for one or two transactional messages. I think there's a huge, huge benefit in moving them to your ESP. One is that, and we've always taken this stance at Malomo, um, you don't have to learn a new tool just to take control of the transactional channel. Like that is pretty huge, right? Like as a business owner myself, who use a lot of technology, like having to learn a new tool just to get an outcome that I want can sometimes be frustrating.
Sure.
And so moving them into a platform that your team already understands well, can be a massive win in terms of speed gains and like the extensibility of what you can do. The other beautiful thing is, and we love this about Klaviyo, is you can send a bunch of metadata to those platforms that allow you to like significantly personalize that communication, that transactional message. Historically, folks that might send transactional messaging, they're personalized in the sense that they're going to a customer who has requested that transactional message to occur. So like you think like I need to reset my password, or I
Hmm.
I, I try to check out, but I abandoned my cart. You'll grab that email address and you'll trigger a message to them. Moving them into the ESP, you can say, well, I know a bunch of attributes about this customer. So not only am I going to send a transactional, I'm going to personalize this to I'm a food brand. I know my consumer is interested in recipes. I'm going to highlight recipes on the transactional message when I send my out for delivery or delivered email. So I think there's a lot of benefit in moving them into your ESP. Um, yeah.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's like to all your points, it's like a retention marketing like dream to be able to have full control over all the personalization, the data that you can bring in. how you segment it out too. Like I know Brandon Amoroso, a friend of ours,
Yeah.
mutually, and he was kind of showing me like what he was doing with like first time versus returning customers and how you can tailor those messages. So like your transactional messages might even feel unique to, hey, thanks for your third order, your first
Yes.
order, all those things. It's like the little things that just say, okay, like I'm not just checking a box here, but also I'm really taking advantage of, if so many eyeballs are going to be on this email, like let's make it look great. Let's make it, just really feel that just more effective. And then I think the other piece of it that's awesome about transactional emails is like, if you put this in Klaviyo, you get all that engagement data. So you can look at it and
Yes.
stitch together that profile. It's like, hey, Yao opened the email. Okay, great. He clicked on it. Like now we know Yao's like, receptive to these. Like let's, there's just so much access that you get by bringing it into your ESP. And also, yeah, to keep it consolidated under one roof is so much better than having, it live in multi kind of platform space.
Yeah, I love that. Like that's that second to last point you made is pretty key. Like just seeing the engagement and like not just like that we got an open or that we got a click. It's like what did they click on? What were they
Sure.
engaging with? Like why did they interact with this email? It all gives you more clues to help personalize the experience for that consumer.
Totally. And I think the next kind of piece of the communication that's always fascinating to me about the transactional channel, I spent time at Attentive, and we ran this really large study around consumer behavior, and we asked folks like what messaging type they wanted to receive, and
Yeah.
on the automation side, transactional SMS was like the number one requested type. I think like 97% of consumers we surveyed wanted it, beating out like every single automation imaginable. And I'm just like, man, like the fact that no one is really talking about this is insane. So I think transactional SMS for a lot of reasons is like my favorite SMS to start that post-purchase journey with. I think you look at some of the stats and things there too. It's like, depending on the brand, I've seen, on the low end, maybe 20, 30% click-through rates all the way up through. I've seen some brands like 60, 70% click-through rates on these texts, which is like insane. I'm curious for you to speak to, yeah, maybe just a little bit of like, what are your thoughts on transactional SMS, and where do you kind of see that fitting in sort of that narrative?
Yeah, it's funny. Like I get a lot of my inspiration and like thinking around this from you.
Okay.
Like you've been going back to obviously when we got to partner together a lot on some things at Attentive. Like we were transparently we were really new to the SMS part of the transactional journey. And so a lot of the things that Attentive was doing was like, and even when you were at Tone,
Hmm.
um, was like so forward thinking. And so I think so. One, I'm a huge believer in SMS. Like when you shared the stats with me a year ago around this channel, it was mind blowing. It's like you're getting better performance in SMS versus email. And email's already like a major cash cow engagement channel for merchants. Like, why would you not do SMS?
Totally.
It seems like you're probably leaving a ton of like really great opportunity on the table there. Um, but I also think it's like it's so early days that I think there's two things happening where they don't understand how to use it correctly, and they're also scared to use it because it is such a like well, what sort of look? It's an intimate channel. Like
Yeah.
you really can't mess up when you're sending SMS messages.
We did a training together as an Attentive. Anyone who's curious about transactional SMS, Yao and I did a great kind of walkthrough of like crawl, walk, run with transactional SMS. I think it's on YouTube somewhere. Do you know? Is it
I
somewhere?
think, yeah, I think
Uh,
we definitely, at least on Malomo's channel, I think we posted it there.
okay, yeah. Anyone listening, I would highly recommend you check it out. We kind of walk through just what great kind of looks like at a high level. But I think to just pull it back too is like a lot of what we see with like transactional SMS is like, I think the opportunity there is really exciting, is that for a lot of brands looking to drive additional value to a consumer, like to say, hey, like our SMS channel isn't just about promotions. It isn't just about
Yeah.
buy my stuff. It's now, hey, like we're gonna give you order updates if you opt in, or like another list growth tactic could even be to offer that and let them know about that. That's a big value add. It also makes sure that like, they're like, okay, I should stay opted in here because I'm going to get, when my package arrives, they're going to tell me. And that's a huge bonus for me to be on the channel, all those things. But even like, we've seen a lot of brands who are hesitant to jump into SMS, or like, we're like, well, we don't really want to grow this big list yet, but like, we'll start with transactional and we'll get the list growing that way. So I just think there's like so many benefits that it's exciting. It's sort of like and for lack of a better term, like the gateway drug to like a better SMS kind of program, is to give those order updates. And it is so easy to set them all up. It takes, only a few minutes if you plug in an integration like Malomo and Attentive, for example.
Yeah. Yep. And like you said, like consumers want to hear from you through that channel. So the opt-in rates are really, really great. I know like, half the battle of leveraging SMS is having a list to message to.
Sure.
And like when you were at Attentive, like y'all were world class at that. I also love like when we did that session together, it was really like crawl, walk, run. Like you said, like, just first of all, drive the opt-ins and do the basics. Right? Just sort of like simple messages around delivery updates and statuses, and drive them to a tracking page, and use that tracking page to sort of like, that's your place where you're having all of your CTAs to drive them back to the shopping journey. Then when you get like that kind of settled in and it's running in the background, then you start to layer in some of these other like more advanced techniques. I think some of the things that you taught me was like, how do you start two-way conversations with these customers? Like one of the examples that I point to a lot with our merchants was, you send a delivery update, and I think the example was like a coffee brand. You send a delivery update, and then you say, hey, we prepared an onboarding guide for you. Like, here are 4 things that we think would be valuable for you. Choose the one that you think you'd want to hear more about. I think those are the types of things where like brands go from like, kind of just like, we're dabbling in the channel, to like, oh, now we're investing, we're gathering insights and data, we're engaging with our customers in unique ways. And so that's one thing that I think is really overlooked in this channel from an SMS perspective. That's very different from email. Very, very different. Yeah.
Very different. But I think like treating it, like if they are promotionally and transactionally opted, and you have that, consent to send them promotional messaging, which most SMS opt-ins are, it's such a blue ocean opportunity if you're willing to dabble in, two-way or personalizing in any SMS platform, whether it's Attentive, Postscript, whatever it is, to be able to segment those out. Okay, like, similar to email, first time versus returning customer, or they bought X but not Y, let's talk to them about this, or like the anything you want to do in a regular automation flow, you can do that with transactional text, which is just I don't know if enough people realize that quite yet. We're seeing more and more folks do it, which is really exciting to see.
Yes.
But it warms my SMS loving heart to see all that kind of stuff starting to manifest out a little bit more.
100%. It's like still early days. Like I don't think many brands are really taking advantage of the real opportunity around transactional SMS.
Totally. The last thing I wanted to say about transactional SMS is really interesting. I was talking to Adam Turner, CEO of Postscript, the other month, and we were talking about the potential for, like, everyone keeps saying there's going to be another iOS update that's going to wreck SMS at some point. Whether that happens or not remains to be seen. But the idea was that, in Brazil and India, we've already seen promotional inboxes pop up on SMS with iOS. So, I was in Brazil at the end of last year, and so I got the update, and now my Apple inbox actually shows the promotions tab, and nothing feeds into it yet. But what I ended up seeing from that is like brands might one day have to fight, just like on email, having this promotional versus known sender kind of inbox. And I think transactional SMS is actually poised to be a really great way to I'm not going to say it's like the 100% way to get everyone into that known inbox, but a great way to add value and make sure they save the contact card, which is what all the SMS vendors are saying is like the tried and true way of getting someone to be in that note sender inbox. But like what we've seen is that the contact card is usually sent on the welcome series, like right when they get their 10% coupon or whatever it is. And it's sort of like you're still dating at that point. Like you don't really want to save that contact card right there. But like what Adam and I were talking about was like, once you send your first transactional update or your post-purchase messaging, say, hey, save this contact card so you get order updates, for example, and now you've suddenly given them a big value add. I think it's a great additional kind of value that transactional SMS can provide. It's like, hey, save this card so you get order updates and you make sure that you get them into your inbox. I think it's just something folks really aren't thinking about, I think, quite yet.
Yeah. I like the positioning around that. Like, hey, we're just dating. Like, how do you continue to give value, like show your worthiness, right?
Totally.
To get to that coveted place where I am going to save that contact card. Yeah, that's good. I like that.
Yeah. Well, it remains to be seen if that happens or not with iOS. But anyway, if you're not doing transactional SMS, like definitely give it a look.
Welcome to Carro, where the world's top brands and creators come together to sell each other's products through cross-store selling. You can join Carro as an online retailer, product supplier, or both. As a retailer or creator, you can sell other amazing products on your online store, allowing you to quickly expand your catalog and increase your average order value, all without the upfront costs of investment in new inventory. You simply sell more product and collect a profit. As a supplier, Carro opens up an entirely new sales channel, making your products available to be sold on thousands of other top brands and top creators' stores. Orders are sent right to their Shopify order queue, making fulfillment super easy. You're always in control as a supplier, choosing what products to make available to the network, what retailers you work with, and the margin that works best for your business. It's the biggest no-brainer in the history of e-commerce. There are literally thousands of brands and creators. Our team is ready to help you find a perfect pairing to your brand. What are you waiting for? Join Carro and start selling more together.
We haven't talked yet about, I think, the glue of the transactional channel, which is the order tracking page. We've been alluding to it, where all the traffic is being sent from these emails, these texts, wherever that's coming from. But I'd love for you to talk a little bit more, just to kind of at a high level, like about the order tracking page, like what's possible there. Maybe we can unpack that just a little bit.
Yeah. So the order tracking page, I actually like to think of it. Again, like if you think about like that Maslow's hierarchy, the first need that you have to meet is clear expectations around delivery. And then I think there's a couple things that merchants can like do. It is a CX channel, so providing customers with a way to contact you or figure out how to resolve an issue when something occurs on that page is pretty key. It can be as simple as like, if something goes wrong, like contact us. Or here are frequently asked questions that we often, like our customers kind of run into. Sort of getting ahead of any problems on that tracking page is like a really great place to do that. Mm-hmm. From the branding and revenue perspective, I think like I look at the tracking page as it's like a landing page, right? If you're spending on Facebook, like the rudimentary thing to do is to drive somebody to your homepage. Like the slightly more advanced thing to do is drive somebody to a product page or a collection page. Like the world-class marketers drive them to a dedicated landing page that has key benefits around the thing that they search for. And so I think of the tracking page similarly. So like we talked about like you can use Klaviyo and the data that's there to personalize the experience. When they click through, you should also show that customer a personalized experience on the tracking page that has a story that you're trying to tell that consumer to guide them in their journey with your brand. If they're a first-time customer, we might be reinforcing the brand and like telling them that they made a good decision buying from us by showing things like product reviews or UGC or people like enjoying or celebrating the product. Second-time customer, we might be driving them into subscription. We might be driving them into loyalty programs. We might be asking for a referral. If we know gender, we might be sending them to, hey, if we sell women's products, send that predicted gender customer to the women's tracking page versus the men's. Mm-hmm. I think it's like it's a journey that you're trying to take the customer on, given what you know about them and the context in their relationship with you as a merchant. Most brands today host one generic tracking page. They send all of their traffic to that one page, and it's a super long, like very, very uncoordinated. Like it looks like it's sort of like they're trying to tell you everything, trying
Hmm.
to be all things to all customers. Um, and that's great. That's like the crawl version of like, hey, I just want to take control of this page and kind of set it and forget it. When you start to take retention seriously, I think it's like, okay, now we're thinking about journeys and what we're telling to each single consumer to drive them into the next stage of their relationship with us as a brand.
Totally. And I think it's yeah, at a very much a crawl, at least getting them to something that you own and it's branded, it is like the very first, like everyone should be able to do that really easily. But then I
Hmm.
mean it's really not that even much more to start to think about personalization, even at a basic level of maybe first time versus returning customers and some of those
Yep.
kind of call to actions, or thinking about like where do you want them to focus on that page, like kind of some of those best practices around yes, you've got the information about where their order is and all those real-time updates, but also like if you're calling out, yeah, like a referral program or maybe some education or all the things you just mentioned there. I think one of the really beautiful things about tracking pages too is like the integration ecosystem that kind of fits within that and
Yeah.
all the tech that you can bring in, like whether it's your returns portal that you want to call out there, or your reviews, or all the different things that kind of make like I always have said like the tracking page is sort of just like it is that glue that kind of brings together like a lot of what you want someone to do post purchase. And you mentioned at the start of this, 20% of total traffic going there. Like you should be thinking about how to make the most of that traffic. There's so many different great use cases I think that you just spoke to there.
Yeah, yeah. I love that you call out the tech piece of this, because that is a huge piece of this. Like being able to embed other apps that power experiences um, for your consumers is a pretty huge win.
Mhm.
Like you think of like your storefront today, I think the average merchant has 20 apps powering like the storefront that consumers would never know about, right? Um, those apps should plug and play into your post-purchase experience as well because they provide a ton of value similarly there than on the acquisition side of the house. And tracking can like I think they can be a symbiotic relationship where tracking can make your other integrated apps better. So you mentioned reviews. This doesn't have anything to do with the tracking page per se, but if we can supply a reviews provider with, hey, the package has been delivered, then they can better
Mhm.
time those product review requests to happen. Um, so I think those are the types of things that like tracking can sort of like bring this constellation of apps together and make them all better as a result.
Totally, yeah. Stuart at Junip and I were talking a
Yeah.
while back. We did a pod episode all about that and the orchestration. It's a big piece of it. Yeah, like you want to know when's the right time to ask for simple things like, hey, how was the experience? How was the product? Like you don't want to be asking them when it's still not arrived or it's been stuck in transit or whatever. Like in the transactional channel can help a lot with that. And I think also like one of the you mentioned it, but like we're always looking for ways to get more integration and usage out of our tech stack that we've got going on. And like when we think about like I'll pick on like a referral platform, like we might send out those emails post purchase like 30 days, hey, do you have anyone that you could refer us to? But like to start that journey on the tracking page and just put visibility on it, like that email that you send out 30 days might only get a 20%, 30% open rate. But like if you've got way more people now suddenly going to that tracking page, it's just like,
Hmm.
even if you don't get the conversion right there, you're starting to kind of condition the customer, but this is something you offer. It could also be like SMS opt-ins that you're trying to get on a tracking page. Maybe you want to ask for a phone number there. Like there's
Yeah.
just so many things that the tracking page is like prime real estate for like
Yeah.
literally anything that you can imagine. I think it's definitely possible on an order tracking page.
Yeah. 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 Man, no, I think that's a great call out. Yeah, like it is like the consumer engagement there is so real and high. It's like can you imagine to get in front of your customers in that moment? And it's like there's an endless number of things
Yeah,
that
thousand
can
percent.
that can provide value to your brand.
Yeah, and you mentioned it at the beginning. It's like, we pay Meta, we pay all these different ads platforms money to retarget customers, but like the transactional channel is a retargeting vehicle in a lot of ways, and to be able to just do that, for such a low cost, like it's a no brainer. So I think a great way to kind of like, I guess, summarize our conversation here, I think I'd love to ask you is, Q4 is rapidly approaching. Folks are busy. They're thinking about, hey, maybe I don't have time to set all this up right now, but if we could just do like one thing from this discussion today to make us, better for it, like what do you think we should be thinking about with respect to the transactional experience?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is just like you should take control of it. Like I think if a merchant takes control of it, they'll understand the impact that it can start to have, and then they'll start to optimize it. I think when you ignore it as an afterthought, you're sort of just losing a lot. You're putting a lot at risk, both in like revenue potential that you are losing to drive repeat, but also like brand perception and brand impressions that you're giving away to somebody else who does not care about your brand. So to the extent that you can just take control of the experience to start off with, is a massive, massive win. And over time, you can get better. I know merchants always have a laundry list of priorities and things that they have to work through. So I think sometimes it gets hard and they get caught up in like what the best brands are doing. And then they think they have to do that with the tools that they have. It's like, you just got to start simple. And you'll, I think that is the biggest win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Couldn't have said it better myself. It's just, even if it's the simplest step of just taking control of that experience, you can build on this over time. And this doesn't take a long time to implement, and
No.
so I think that's the beauty of it is like, take back your traffic this Q4 and like put it to work for you. And like, even if it doesn't drive, the revenue at the beginning, it's like you're still making great customer experience or making sure that like you're saving potentially, frustrated customers who could have a delay, or bring them back to your site. All the benefits we talked about, I could rant on for minutes on, but anyway, I digress. But I totally agree. Invest in it. Like this is such low hanging fruit, and I think it's table stakes at this point to own that experience.
Yes. Yeah.
Before I let you go, Yaw, I've been playing D2C Rapid Fire with all of my guests, and Gabby from Smarter holds the record, I think, right now. She's at 6 questions in 2 minutes. So
Ooh.
I'm going to try to see if we can put a little bit of competition under you and see if we can get that one up at least.
Oh, I mean, Gabby's smart. That's the company name. It's going to be hard to beat her.
That is true. Well, let's. I'll put 2 minutes on the clock if you're ready for it, and we'll see how many we can get done.
Let's go.
All right. Who is a must follow on D2C Twitter or LinkedIn that not enough people are following?
Oh man. Okay, I spend probably more of my time on LinkedIn than Twitter. I love Dylan Whitman is great. Previously the founder of BVA. And now running in Veterit. And I think he's got a really great perspective of being like on the operator side, working with merchants, and on the tech side of like, how do you leverage technology to better advance your brand? So he's got some really good hot takes. So yeah, I'd go with Dylan.
Dylan's a must follow. Always keeping it real. What's the best educational resource around right now for ecom?
Best educational resource. I'm gonna give a quasi resource. I think the limited supply Slack group is popping off.
Nice. Okay.
There's a lot of engagement over there. And like not necessarily a resource, but there's a lot of merchants asking questions and getting like insights from one another. So I would go with that.
Big shout out to that. Best use case for AI in e-commerce right now?
Oh, so I don't know if anybody's doing this or has figured this out, but if you could figure out a way to like have a founder make a thank you video that's personalized for every single person that bought using AI, I think that I would think that would change the game.
Huge. Just put it in your transactional messages maybe too.
Exactly. Yeah.
If you could have one gigantic billboard anywhere with anything on it, metaphorically speaking, to get a message out to everyone in the world about transactional, what would it be and why?
Retention is the new acquisition.
Love it.
And if you are not driving growth through repeat purchases, you don't have a future strategy.
Big one. Last one. Give me 2 D2C brands that should form a partnership or collaboration.
I'll go with okay. This one's kind of different. I would go with Blue Land and Rocket Chocolate. So
Okay.
you're like, what? Okay, so you got this cleaning brand in Blue Land, and the reason that I'm saying this is because like after you clean, right? You clean out your house and your surfaces, you're like you feel great, and you just kind of need a little treat to end that session. And so Rocket Chocolate, or chocolate in general, I think is really good. And then the reason Rocket Chocolate is because I think their audiences are very similar. So like you got Rocket's very like sustainability focused, clean ingredients. Same with Blue Land, like they value the sustainability. So I think there's an overlap in like audience mindset that I think would play well there, but very different
Totally.
brands. Yeah.
No, I love it. A bit of gamification right there.
Yeah.
We're over on time by 50 seconds, but we write the rules here at 2%, so no worries. We got 5 though, so you're definitely up on the leaderboards. That's a valiant effort. All great answers.
Don't tell Gabby.
Gabby, if you're listening, I'm sorry. But yeah, dude, honestly, I couldn't agree with all that stuff you said more. I think this is shout out Dylan's a great follow if anyone's not following him. Honestly, one of the I think most just like respected people in the space, but always saying things that are like thought provoking, and we need more people posting stuff like that. I think on social as we spend a lot of our time on those feeds, it's great to have thought provoking people kind of asking real questions. But
Yep.
Sweet, man. Well, this has been a blast to chat with you. As we kind of wrap this up, like what's next for you and the Malomo team, and where should listeners go if they want to get in touch with you guys?
Yeah. So definitely visit our website, gomalomo.com. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. If you just search for Yaw Aning, I'm sure you'll find me. Or just email me, yaw@gomalomo.com. What's next for Malomo? We got some Q4s coming up. We got some really interesting things coming up, especially around ways to reclaim that 20% of your store traffic. We're launching a pretty cool thing around tracking pages coming out. I think in a couple weeks.
Okay.
So stay tuned for that.
Nice.
I think it's going to change the game.
That's exciting. I'm really excited to see what that big feature will be, and also to I'll link out to all in the show notes to anyone who wants to get in touch with Yaw and the team. But yeah, I'm wishing you all the best. This has been a blast. You're welcome on the show anytime. And folks, if there's anything you do, just please invest in the transactional channel. Whatever you do, it is very, very low hanging fruit.
Couldn't agree more. Thank you for having me, Blake. It was a pleasure.
Thanks so much for watching today's episode. I hope you got 2% better for watching, and if you haven't already, consider giving this video a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel so you never miss another episode. We have a variety of e-com topics to talk about this season that's going to get you 2% better each week across a variety of topics. Also, if you want exclusive content not covered in these episodes that's super tactical, head over to getcarro.com/podcast. You'll find full episode recaps, transcripts, and so much more content that we don't have time to cover in these episodes. Lastly, if you want to continue on the journey right now, I encourage you to do so. I will link to a other episode right here. You can take advantage of that. Click just right there, and that'll take you to that episode. And with that, I'll see you next week on 2% the podcast.